So welcome to the Diagnostics Working Group meeting for February 26, 2020. I'm going to chair in place of Peter this week because he's, I think, in travel mode. We'll follow the standard agenda. I'm going to paste the link to that in the chat so that everybody who's here can add themselves to the list of attendees. First of all, does anybody have any announcements they'd like to share? Okay, if we don't have any announcements this week, let's go on to the issues that were tagged for the agenda. The first one is future of LL node number 355. I know we did talk about that last time.
So as we discussed last time, we changed the landing policy on LL node so that collaborators can land their own pull requests as long as it's been open without reviews for 3 days.
Yeah, okay.
I think we can remove it from the agenda now.
Okay. Do you want to remove it or close it?
Yeah, I think we can close it.
Okay.
I'm gonna do this.
Okay, going to. Sorry. Close issue. Okay, where is so close? Discussed in last diagnostic meeting. Require. Okay, so the next one on the tracker is report version semantics are not defined. So this is number 349. This has to do with the version number in diagnostic reports. I think there's been some more discussion. Jarish, can you sort of bring us up to speed and see if there's any questions, and maybe we can figure out what we need to close on this?
Yeah, basically the requirement came from the core about a consensus about the semantic versioning model that we need to be adopting for the diagnostic report. And initially we had different views, basically all combinations of X, Y, Z, X, Y, and X. But eventually what I can see is that we are kind of converging to a single digit number. And basically that represents a bump whenever there is a addition of new key, removal of a new key, and if at all there is a change in the data type of any field, though we don't foresee such kind of changes. But that's where we stand at this point. We don't see any huge opposition on that particular proposal. So my idea would be to just wait for few more days to see if there is anything other than what is there in the issue tracker. If nothing comes as an opposition, take this as the input from the diagnostic working group and give that as the recommendation.
Okay, and I guess we should PR this into some of the node governance, right?
Okay, sure.
Is that a comment? Is that the, I'm just thinking like we can say, okay, this is what we've agreed and we should probably document it somewhere. So I'm thinking that a PR makes sense, just confirming that.
You mean to say the semantic, the version upgrade model of the diagnostic report?
Yep.
Just like you have another other entries for the NAPI, V8, etc.
Yep.
Okay.
So if you want to do that PR?
Sure, I can do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we'll close that one out. Okay, the next one is proposal to drive diagnostic workgroup initiatives through user journeys. I think we were going to have a deep dive this week, but we've agreed, since we couldn't get everybody here today, to defer that to next time. So I don't know if there's anything else to talk about. Okay. The next one, oops, how did I do that? Next one is diagnostic best practices, async hooks, 211. Is that?
No, that's two issues.
Okay.
It's the best practice is one, and async hooks is another one.
Yes. Okay. So right, diagnostic best practices guide. Is that different than our deep dive? Just opening it up. Yeah, I think that's the same thing we're working on under the covered under work for deep dive for 295 as well. Okay, so that's still covered there, unless anybody else wants to offer something new on that one. No? Okay, then the next issue is async hooks, stable API tracking issue number 124. I think Stephen Bélanger had been giving us an update over in the last couple meetings, but looks like he couldn't make it this week. I don't know if anybody else has an update.
I see that the async storage API has been landed in core.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. Yep.
I don't know further details about that. I also see couple of more PRs which are adding more features or basically fixing a couple of bugs around that.
Yeah, no, I think that is the async storage. And then there was also the yeah, I forget if there was a couple, one which was like async resource and then async storage, but it's good to see that land, because I think that's an important thing in terms of having that functionality. And it's good that we're now, like, people are tweaking it. There's something concrete there that you know, the follow-on PRs are then addressing the tweaks and stuff. So it seems quite healthy.
Yeah, I'm just wondering that we do have quite many unit test cases, and most of them, or at least a good subset of them, follow the pattern of a client server model. And we deal with the request and response object around various closures and other functions. So probably is it worthwhile to see how do we make use of this storage API to play around with the request and response objects without really passing those through the functions, and see how does this work in the real world scenarios. Probably that's one thing which we can make use of to provide early indications or early feedback to this API.
So is your suggestion to say, is it worthwhile to add test coverage using our existing HTTP tests?
Yeah, we do have a
thinking?
huge coverage for the HTTP test cases.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, we might need to see, is it worthwhile to tweak them from the traditional closure-based approaches to the CLS-based approach. We have done that in the past, like changing the callbacks into the arrow function types, wrapping callbacks into common must calls and all those things. So as and when the APIs evolve, we also have evolved the unit test cases.
Right, yeah. So I guess what you're saying is, I was thinking you're saying we could start with the existing tests and make a set which help to test the CLS functionality. But you're more suggesting, should we evolve the existing ones just to incorporate that functionality?
Yeah, it would be either way, right? I mean, some of the HTTP test cases which require the route objects like request and response to be played around, passed around into various functions could be just stored into this storage
Right.
and retrieved wherever is required. It would become a kind of programming pattern which most of the HTTP and net objects and net test cases can follow. And in that process, will also be evolving the test cases. At the same time, we'll also be able to provide subtle feedback to the API itself.
There are methods, yeah, needed. I mean, I think in my mind, it may be worth starting by adding new tests, just because until it's non-experimental, what would happen if we drop support for it? Right, like you wouldn't want to now invalidate all of the existing HTTP tests.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good idea to add new test cases, targeted test cases that specifically look at the functionality of this API. But
well, I was even just like saying, take some of the existing ones, like you suggested, take to the existing ones. If they used an alternate approach, modify them to use CLS, but do it in a way where you're adding a new variant of that test versus removing the original one.
Okay. Yep. Yeah.
Then,
that looks good.
maybe if we name them consistently, so they're like the same name -CLS, then when we know that, say, CLS is baked in and becomes non-experimental, we could delete the non-CLS flavors of the tests.
That looks good to me. Yeah.
Yeah, just thinking, I don't know how many there are, maybe that'll be too much duplication or whatever, but it seems like a good starting point. The other thing I'd be interested in doing, if given lots of time, would be to look at, say, open census and do a proof of concept where we use the CLS built into Node versus the one that, the external modules that they're currently using.
Okay.
Do that, run their unit tests, because I think that would be a good real world thing to validate as well. Any other thoughts, discussion on that one? Yeah, I don't know if I don't, just wondering, do you think Dries, it makes sense to open an issue in terms of the suggestion of like how to build additional CLS testing or how to modify those HTTP tests?
Yes.
Okay, so do you want to open that issue?
I will open an issue.
Okay.
It should be in the core or in this repo.
Could be either, I think. I would say, let's say core, because it might get more visibility help from other people.
Yeah. And moreover, that it's already landed in core, so it makes sense. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Okay, so any other issues we should talk about? That's the end of the ones that were tagged for the agenda. If not, we'll give everybody back some time for today and we'll call it for today. Thanks for everybody who could make it. Talk to you later.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yep.
Thanks. Bye.